Thank you all for joining me for another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. Doing the new releases today for Friday, January 26th, 2024. Almost said 23. Yeah, this is the first, I would say, sort of substantial new release week of 24. As far as music goes, I have some music updates, gonna show new releases, and a couple little tidbits here and there. Before I get into the new releases, I just want to mention I just saw a movie. I recommend. It's one of that you if you see it you'll never forget it. And I don't know if it's not the best movie ever made, and there's certainly things about it that are not for everybody. But it was a movie called Saltburn. I think a lot of people have been talking about this, and some of it just left me sort of speechless. And I would say be careful who you watch it with and what size group you're in and what their reactions might be, because some of it's a little bit, I don't know. I've seen things that have been crazy in movies before, but this one had a whole series of them. But the reason that I really bring this up is because I want to sort of congratulate this woman, Sophie Webster, for her hit song "Murder on the Dance Floor." When I heard this song was being used in this movie, I thought, good for her. She needs a hit, and in the U.S. anyway. And considering the Kate Bush success recently with "Running Up That Hill" being used in Stranger Things, this her song is used in the penultimate scene of the movie. This is my CD I bought as an import 22 years ago. So it's nice seeing an old song that had hit potential in the U.S. Being sort of resurrected worldwide because of this movie, or in part due to this movie. And it was a number 2 hit in the UK the first time around. In America, it was maybe a club song, but never really got much past that. And it's been back to number 2 again in England, and sort of riding in the top 5 now. And in America, it's kind of up around number 50. So it's been pushing up the charts. But congratulations to her. I've always thought of her as sort of a quality uh, female British pop artist that never really got much attention in the US. And so keep going. And it is used, like I said, in sort of the final scene of the movie. And again, it's a sort of scene that you probably never forget if you see it. But she's discussed this in YouTube videos about how she's sort of like knew it was going to be used that way, but wasn't prepared for some of the other scenes in the movie, and had watched it with one of her or a couple of her children, I think, in tow, and was like, oh my god, and her parents too, was sort of like, oh, this is embarrassing. But anyway, but it's a great movie. Great. It's entertaining. All right. So that being said, let me move on to the new releases of the week. All right. So the big new release this week, in my opinion, is the Smile with their album "The Wall of Eyes." This is Tom York and Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead. Their second album together as a trio with Tom Skinner, who was the percussionist and drummer in Sons of Kemet, sort of a modern jazz group. And while there may be sort of, you could say, oh, there's like a jazz element here or there, it's really kind of more like a mind expanding type vision of what maybe Radiohead was doing mid late career. And the last Smile record was probably a little more commercial in a way, I hesitate to say, even though none of it was necessarily like stuff that you're going to hear on like pop radio. But it was more of a Radiohead sounding album. This album, I just heard it last night, and it is fantastic. But it's a little more quiet at times and a little more avant-garde in some ways. I don't know if that's really a great term to describe it with. But the Smiles debut was the number 2 album that I chose for the year it came out, which was or my number 2, which was 2022. So here we are, beginning of a year and a half later, and they've already got the follow up. Now this only has 8 songs instead of 12, but they're all much longer, all over 5 minutes long. Whereas the last record, they were mostly or all under 5 minutes. So, but I highly recommend this if you're into Radiohead. Give it a listen, and it's not an immediate listen. I probably listened to it at least 3 times before it really started sinking in. But the first track, Wall of Eyes, has been premiered, and there's a video out there, and it's kind of a moody little, like, it's been referred to as being a samba-esque, which it does. It kind of has a shuffling rhythm. Teleharmonic is the second track, which is sort of more sort of like moodiness. What isn't moody about these guys? Read the Room and Under Our Pillows, those 2 songs complete side A, and they're more kind of naughty and have like all these little spidery sort of guitar lines and stuff. And Under Our Pillows is a very interesting song. It sort of changes rhythm a couple of times. And then side 2, Friend of a Friend, is probably the closest to like a Beatlesy song that Tom York has ever sort of come up with. And it has sort of an interesting kind of pillowy piano part that shifts from 5/4 time into like sometimes 9/8, or sort of like shifting time. I find them very interesting because a lot of their stuff is based on sort of shifting time signatures, even though the chords might be rather sort of basic in some ways. I Quit is sort of another sort of mellow track, and then Bending Hectic and You Know Me are the final 2. Bending Hectic is a great sort of like 8-minute song. Weird, interesting lyrics about like driving around the Italian countryside or the cliffs, and then sort of careening like off a curve, and then you get this blast of strings and all. I'm not gonna like give too much away, but you really should listen to that track. And then You Know Me, the last song, very beautiful, moody, haunting, great album. So great way to kick off 2024 in a sort of big new album, and it'll most likely be on my top 10 list at the end of the year. So that's saying something in the first few weeks. All right, so other new releases. I'm sorry if I talked about everyone that much. You guys would be like, okay, time's a ticking. We're gonna be here all day. The Menzingers. This is their new record. Some of it was true. I believe they're from New Jersey, right? Sort of like, oh, I don't know. How would you describe this? Sort of American type. I mean, they're American. Working man's type indie rock, I guess. I don't know. I've never really thought to categorize them before, but it's been a little while since they had a record. There's quite a few songs there. So, one record I don't have to show but is coming is the new Alkaline Trio, just for a note there. Another one here, Future Islands, and their new record. This is called People Who Aren't There Anymore, still signed to 4AD. Future Islands have a very interesting sort of sound, because their stuff is very sort of electro-poppy, kind of pop, smoothed out, synth pop, whatever. And then Sam's voice is very gruff and kind of gritty, and I wouldn't even necessarily call it like it's got soul, but it's not like your typical Sam Cooke or someone like that. It's more like if someone in a metal band sort of started singing synth pop. Sort of, it's an interesting mix, and all of their albums, especially the last 4 or 5, have been pretty interesting. They've gotten pretty glossy, and then his voice is like the thing that sort of throws it off and makes it more rough. Ty Segall, his new album, I think this is just called Ty Segall. It's got little bells on the sticker there. He's like an indie rock stalwart at this point, just keeps cranking out albums. It's been a little while again for him. For a while there, he was it was him, the OCs, and King Gizzard that were all vying for who's going to make the most records this year. And I think Ty sort of like almost pushed a little too far in some directions for the general audiences, and so he's kind of more of an indie artist again, whereas like King Gizzard are pretty like I would call like mainstream-ish. I mean, I guess if you can make 25 records and people are still following you, no matter if you're making a metal record or a synth pop record or what, you pretty much more mainstream. But another great sort of singer-songwriter artist with a new album out, Sarah Jarosz, and this is an indie record, exclusive blue and green splatter vinyl, limited edition, Polaroid lovers. I guess I should have been saying here if these were other ones were color vinyl or not. The Smile, the Radiohead project, is limited edition blue vinyl. So John Moreland, formerly of Moreland and Arbuckle, I think, In the Throes. This is indie record store exclusive green grass colored vinyl, remastered by John Baldwin. Oh, this is remastered, so I don't know. This is a I don't know why it'd be remastered. I thought this was new. Maybe it's an older album. Go figure. I don't know as much about John Moreland. I know he's been sort of making records for a long time. Katie Kirby, her new album, Blue Raspberry. And this is on, it says limited edition color vinyl. I think it's clear. Oh yeah, it's clear vinyl. Not blue raspberry vinyl. So, and I think that this was sort of like detailing sort of a breakup of a relationship or something, but again, somebody I need to learn more about. I will be the first to admit when I don't know something about somebody. The Smithereens, the Lost Tapes. This came out last fall on CD, and this is finally on vinyl. Lost in 1993, found in 2022. The original Smithereens limited edition metallic gold vinyl, only 1,000 copies pressed. The Lost album is essential Smithereens and doesn't disappoint, say Goldmine and Saloon. So there you go, Smithereens. Yeah. This I think came out last week, and maybe it came in late for us, but 99th Dream by Swervedriver. And Swervedriver is a shoegaze type band, and this was produced by Alan Moulder and Swervedriver, so I think it was like official recordings. I think this was stuff that they were working on several years back, and then for some reason decided not to release it or something, right? Like that, because it does mention tape transfers on the back here. So 15 songs though. Swervedriver, just part of that whole My Bloody Valentine scene, really. Longwave, I guess, I don't know if I would consider them shoegazy. I mean, there's maybe elements of it, but it's more like kind of indie rock. Produced by Dave Fridman, famous for doing all the biggest Flaming Lips albums. But yeah, this has quite a few. This is a reissue as well. 2003, so 20 years. Longwave. They were one of those bands that just kept quietly releasing albums, and in the store they sold a little here and there, but I don't know, people around here were sort of like, they don't really pay attention too much, but if people who liked Longwave loved Longwave. So let's see, so if you're into shoegaze and stuff like that, check out those bands. Swervedriver, Longwave. Ben Webster. This is the big jazz reissue of the week. There's no Blue Notes this week, so Soulville, and this is Verve Acoustic Sounds series, mastered from the original analog tapes by top mastering engineers, manufactured at QRP. I will say that I've gotten other things from this label that just sound incredible. Like they're the most incredible sounding jazz records that I own and have probably heard as far as the quality of them. But this features Lover Come Back to Me, Making Whoopee, Time on My Hands, Ben Webster. And that's the only one this week. I think there was another Ben Webster recently. Oh, the one with Coleman Hawkins. So maybe they were supposed to come out on the same day and something got moved. Another reissue this week, Lee Morgan, Volume 3. This is, while it's not on Blue Note, and Kevin Gray did not handle this, it's sort of like mimics all the Blue Note artwork. There have been a couple of these kind of things come out where on different labels. I think the other one was Destination Moon, where they sort of mock up the same like cover art as what the original release would have been, and then but release it on a different label. So it's more of it's not what I would consider an audiophile necessarily release, but this has the track I Remember Clifford, and Hassan's Dream is on here. Features Lee Morgan on trumpet, Gigi Grace, Benny Golson, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers. Benny Golson did the arrangements. So Lee Morgan. Not a whole lot of those floating around. All right. Couple of big. Now I got to get to the start your ear off right stuff. Warner Brothers Rhino has been doing this this month, and this week we've got a few things here. And it's the last week of the month, so they better get them out. This is sort of a big deal. Stevie Nicks, Trouble in Shangri-La. This is one of her best later period albums, 90s album. This came out, what year specifically? 2001. I'm getting my years sort of mixed up, but yeah, right around the turn of the century. This features the track Sorcerer, which was sort of the single here, and Planets of the Universe. This is on limited edition translucent sea blue vinyl. I believe Sheryl Crow made appearances on this record. There was a Stevie Nicks box set recently that was issued by Rhino, and they only released it as a web exclusive, which is really frustrating. So this is probably excerpted from the box set for people who didn't want to buy the box set. I'm not really sure if the records in the set were color vinyl or not. Sometimes they'll do that where the box set will be black, as with the Prince box set, the records are all black, but if you bought the standalone record, it was color on the outside. So anyway, so this one is translucent sea blue. And the other Stevie Nicks that came out this week, probably a little less desired for some people, Street Angel, which came out earlier. This is 94, and features the song Blue Denim. This was sort of the, I guess what I would say they would, I don't know if this is like, I don't know how sober she was when she made this, but yeah, there's been discussion. I don't know. I never really listened to this album, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure the Stevie fans out there know better than me, so I'll leave it to them. And another Start Your Ear Off Right, Black Sabbath, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. This is on limited edition Smoke vinyl, featuring Sabbath Bloody Sabbath as the lead-off track. It's a classic. It's not Break the Bank. It's like $30. So 50th anniversary. Let's see. There's a couple of these, the Now Playing series that they've been sort of doing that are kind of like greatest hits type albums. It's sort of a greatest hits Curtis Mayfield album on transparent Peaceful Purple vinyl. And so it's sort of, all of these have the same sort of basic back on them, but you do get Pusherman, Superfly, stuff like that on here for $20. Might be a no-brainer for some people if they don't necessarily want the Superfly soundtrack. I don't know why you wouldn't want that, but and then Ray Charles, another sort of Now Playing, this is the greatest hits on transparent Soul Blue vinyl. Same sort of back. This features I've Got a Woman, Mess Around, Hallelujah, I Love Her So. Yeah. What I say. Anyway, and then a third one. We're going soul this week. Zapp and Roger, or Zap. I guess it just says Zap on the cover here. on translucent bouncing red vinyl. Zapp and Roger, well, it says Zapp and Roger on the back, had some great singles in the early 80s. Dig those outfits. More bounce to the ounce. Roger's version, I've heard it through the grapevine. I Can Make You Dance, Heartbreaker. Of course, it's got Computer Love. Great. Great sort of synth funk stuff, mainly. Weirdly, this is being reissued. Journey's Greatest Hits. I would think a lot of people have Journey already, but this features obviously things like Don't Stop Believin', Separate Ways, Any Way You Want It, Faithfully. It does say remastered 2024 for vinyl from the original stereo flat master tapes. Doesn't say who remastered it. Maybe that's in the... Oh, it's in the credits back here. So there's a whole bunch of reissue credits on the back. Small. Vinyl produced by Steve Perry and John Jackson. I guess Steve Perry produced this. Remastered from the original tapes by Adam Ion at Gateway Studios, Portland, Maine. Lacquer cut by Chris Bellman and Bernie Grunman. So there you go. If you haven't gotten that already. Let's see, another reissue this week. Keith Richards' Vintage Vinos album. This is, I think this is on colored vinyl. I'm not really sure. But it's 2 records. Looks like the 4th side might be some kind of an etching. I'm not sure. I think this has been out before too, but this seems expanded somehow. There's a side of live stuff. Maybe that was in the original. I don't know. I don't remember looking at the track listing. So, boy, I'm full of like questions today with no answers. Damitri. This is, I don't know if I've seen this on vinyl, at least not for decades. Change Everything. Let's see. This album, this is their first album. A&M 1992. Oh, well, maybe I never saw it on vinyl because it came out in the 90s. But Damitri ended up being a pretty big sort of indie rock band. I don't know if they were that indie. But a rock band. And had some pretty catchy power pop type songs. And so this may be of interest to Damitri fans. I don't know how many of these they made, though. So that's another thing to think about. And then CD wise, there were a few. Nas Magic 3, which I think the vinyl was supposed to come out, but we haven't gotten that yet. Dinner Party, this is Dinner Party Dessert. So, and this features Terrace Martin, Robert Glasper, Kamasi Washington, and Ninth Wonder. I think this is already out on vinyl, I'm not sure. Bernard Allison, Luther's Blues. This is a double CD, songs of his father, Luther Allison, and featuring Life's a Bitch. This is coming out on vinyl in late February. Danielle Nicole, The Love You Bleed. She's another blues artist. And I think the vinyl for that may be coming a little later. And on a completely different tip, Matmos, Return to Archive. That's kind of a creepy cover, right? Matmos is sort of like experimental, avant-garde type electronica, a lot of sampling and stuff like that. This is, weirdly, they got access to the Smithsonian and were like basically sampling records that were in there. And so anyway, it says... It says 75 years after, 1948, Moses Ash founded Folkways Records with a self-proclaimed mandate to record the sounds of the entire world. From the sounds of North American frogs to speech after the removal of the larynx, Folkways documented the audible nooks and crannies of the existence of hundreds of LPs produced by field recordists, scientists, and experimentalists. 75 years later, electronic music duo Matmos have diced, looped, stretched, and recontextualized these recordings on their new album Return to Archive. Dolphins, beetles, telephones, humans scratching the limits of their stretching the limits of their vocal cords, shortwave radio, metal machinery, and countless other sources commingle in a fantasia of sound both everyday and extraordinary. Each track morphs its source material into something completely unexpected, honoring and expanding on the Folkways legacy. I don't have this currently on vinyl, but if you want it, let me know. It's definitely like an esoteric piece. Um, and I think today for my recommends corner, I'm doing a sort of a new release, which has maybe been out for a couple weeks in the UK, but it's finally getting a release sort of, or it came over here, which is Kirsty MacColl and Free World, the best of 1979 to 2000. I may have mentioned Kirsty before on this channel. I think I must have, and I know I talked about well, I don't know. Sometimes I forget who I told the story to, but I did get to meet her at one point in the late '90s. She was very shy, but a very sweet person, and at least from just meeting. And I felt like, she was killed in a horrible boating accident in 2000, and has never really gotten her due. And so I kind of think people maybe want to check this out. This is not cheap, though, by the way, but it is sort of a greatest hits, a double greatest hits on yellow vinyl. And most Americans, if they've heard her, they probably either heard her in the She's Having a Baby soundtrack when she performed the Smiths' You Just Haven't Earned It Yet, Baby. But she also did Fairy Tale of New York, the song with the Pogues, which came under controversy in England in the last couple of years because it's very popular over there, mainly for a line that uses the other F word that they were worried that it would upset people hearing that on the radio, when it's really about a couple of down and out people kind of trading barbs at Christmas time. But anyway, this is sort of a good overview of her career. And she was married for a while to Steve Lillywhite, the producer, worked with U2, Dave Matthews. And so she was in the studios a lot. He worked a lot with the Smiths. She was sort of friends with them, sang on a lot of their records. Johnny Marr played on a lot of her records. And Billy Bragg also pops up here. There's a duet with Evan Dando of the Lemonheads, where they do Perfect Day by the Velvet Lou Reed. And so I think that, if you're sort of like interested, this is a good place to kind of start. And then also features some of her late period stuff, including the songs for that she did in Cuba. She was kind of getting really into sort of Latin music, and they're very funny, humorous kind of lyrics, sassy. She definitely was sort of fearless in the sass department. And I think a lot of people also would know her from the song They Don't Know, which was a big hit in the early 80s for Tracy Ullman. And it was actually a Kirsty song that they sort of took the demo and then redid it for Tracy to have a hit. And in the video, Paul McCartney was featured. And most people remember the line in the song where she goes, "Baby," and that's actually Kirsty singing that because Tracy was a little bit nervous about hitting those notes. So, but Kirsty, I think her thing to be really remember her for is her vocal ability to sort of harmonize with herself and blend with herself on record. She just had this sort of airy, breathy quality that her voice could just sort of be so perfect across all of the textures. And I assume some of that was like, her husband mixing things or whoever she was working with. But she had a really great ability to harmonize and was a great songwriter. Came up with some great lyrics and melodies. And, it's a real shame that we lost her in that accident. And the thing about that is that that's never really been resolved. There are people that seem to be sort of escaping being sort of prosecuted by their status in Mexico and whatever. So you think two decades later, and that really still has not been resolved. Her kids are, who were there at the time, are all in their mid-late 20s now, or probably almost 30. So it's just a tragic situation. But she deserved to have a much longer career. So today's my send-up for Free World, best of Tracy Ullman, best of Kirsty McCall. Kirsty, miss her dearly. All right, I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview too of new releases that are coming up here shortly. February 2nd, there is the Fish re-release of Round Room. Actually, it's first time on vinyl apparently. Jay Mascis has a new record that day. Paul McCartney's Band on the Run reissue. Yusef Lateef has an original jazz classic being reissued that day. There are 2 Blue Notes that day, Tone Poets by Blue Mitchell and Joe Lovano, and The Who, Quadrophenia, a half-speed master edition of that. Also Who by Numbers comes out that day. Other things in February, Brittany Howard of Alabama Shakes has her new solo record. The Idols return with sort of a new rock album. Steve Hackett of Genesis, early Genesis, is back with another record. UFO is reissuing their album Lights Out. And then, of course, Jennifer Lopez returns, and the Middle Kids. And also a big note, I think the next big release date really is February 16th. That is the day that the new MGMT record releases. That's been highly praised already in the press. Real Estate's new album, Hooray for the Riff Raff, and 2 sort of big reissues that day. Neil Young, the Zuma reissue. It's called Doom, and it's got extra stuff. Neil Young, I believe Crazy Horse is involved. And then also the second Days of the New album, which the first one was such a huge reissue on vinyl a year ago, about a little over a year ago. So that it's another import, but that's coming. And then also things of note that are coming out soon that you might want to be aware of in March and beyond. Black Crowes new record, first in 15 years. New Black Keys album already premiered a video. Judas Priest returns again. Ride have a new record. They're already out on tour with the Charlatans. The Gossip have a new album, the first in like a decade probably, maybe more. Vampire Weekend supposedly are finishing up their new album. Dua Lipa, her new album is on the way. Krungbin, I have a picture of their other album here, Mordecai. They have a new record coming, first week of April, I believe. Adrienne Lenker, if you like Big Thief, she's got another solo record coming. She already had one since the last Big Thief album, I think, so that's 2 in a row. Liam Gallagher, his new record with John Squire of Stone Roses is coming soon. I think there's another single being dropped shortly. Jesus Mary Chain, their new album. Ministry have a new record. Yard Act, if you're sort of into that sort of post-punky kind of stuff, that's been really great and popular lately. There's a new Sheryl Crow album on the way, and they just announced new records from Justice, and that features Kevin Parker, I believe, of Tame Impala on a track or 2. Phosphorescent have a new record, their first in 5 years, and Alice Cooper is reissuing a $1 Billion Babies deluxe edition. One final note here, Billy Joel. He's releasing his first song in 17 years, and apparently there is going to be a 7-inch single for that, and we won't be able to sell it to you because apparently it's being made as an online web exclusive, which is extremely irritating. If you aren't releasing us anything for 17 years and you finally get around to it and you don't let like regular retailers sell it because your management is that precious, I have no idea. But like, did Taylor Swift's old management move on to Billy Joel? I don't know. We're finally getting all the Taylor records, so very frustrating. So I just want to let you guys know, if you want Billy Joel, you're going to have to do it yourself and go online. So, all right. Thank you guys very much. Hope that was enough for you for one day. It was a little more than last time. And Well, I'll keep you posted week to week what's going on. So thanks again, and thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Uh, Thank you for those of you who actually placed orders on our Discogs page after watching a video. You know who you are. And peace. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week. Bye.